Alright, so the next evolution in this Let's Rebuild Jake suspension is front shocks. So first of all, I'm going to remove my inner fender liners, which are aftermarket and brought to you by National Off-Road Jeep Association. I think they're about 150 bucks a pair. They got a nice little Jeep grill cut into them. Very simple to install. I had to add a little extra bracket on this side because I've got the snorkel. But other than that, they're awesome. They work great, look great. I even thought about putting a light back here so that it highlights the grill at night, but just haven't done it yet. So I'm gonna do that first, and then I'll move the camera over so closer to me, because if I'm over there, you can't hear me with the GoPro. So let's get the inner fender off. Alright, so inner fender liner is off, and here's the shock we're going to remove. Upper mount up here. It's a 14 millimeter, and on the bottom we have an 18 millimeter nut on one side and bolt, and that's it. That's all that's holding the shocks on. 15 millimeter on top. You've got a probably, I think it's an 8 millimeter, I'll check later, to hold the very top of the bolt right here, so that the whole stud doesn't turn. Other than that, it's pretty simple, pretty easy. Take shocks off. Let's get this camera sitting right here so everybody can basically watch this process and hear me, which is always good. Seven millimeter should do it. So let's loosen this bad boy up. Get some light on the subject here. You know, the whole shaft turns. I'm going to try not to block everybody's view. While I do this, I'm just holding the top with a 7 millimeter and turning the bottom with a 14. And since it's not very tight, as this shouldn't be cranked down, I didn't have to hold the top very much. So Alright, so I changed that first wrench out for one of my ratcheting wrenches, which always makes life a lot easier. Crank. Alright, so the top nut is off, and it's held in there as well by a top shield, top washer, and a rubber grommet, the same as you can see right here and here. There's a bottom washer and a bottom rubber grommet. So that's what compresses, the nut is compressing down on to hold the upper shock in place. Alright, so that's the top. That's the top off. Pretty easy, simple, not very difficult at all. So let's do the bottom. Okay, as you can see, as I said before, we've got an 18mm bolt with an 18mm nut on the other side of it, and that's all that holds the shock on. So let's grab our trusty 1/2" drive socket with 18mm and a wrench, and let's get this sucker off. We are going to reuse this nut and bolt for the new shock, so we don't want to damage it. Looks like it's pretty loose. It's going to slide right out. But if it doesn't, let's tap it. That's it. And your shock is disconnected. Now all we need to do is pull the top. Actually, you can pry the bottom out and it'll just drop right down. So you can grab a pry bar that's right nice and handy. Pop the bottom out of the mount. And it just comes right out, just like that. Very simple. Just like the rear ones. Alright, so that's our shock removed. There's your top that was held in by the very top up here is around a 7mm, well, at least that's what I used, and a 14mm nut. And you got your rubber bushing and your rubber washer on the lower end, and you had another one on the top. Also, you've got this rubber bushing that goes through the shock eye with a metal sleeve, which I've already inserted in the new shocks. So there's that. Let's put that to the side and grab a new shock. So here's our new shocks. Alright, again, they're Deutsch Tech hydraulic shocks. I've got the boots for them, and we're just going to install these. Again, that's a 7mm And we've got the rubber bushing set and nut and lock nut for these. So these come with its own little shock absorber so that when you don't bottom them out and damage the shock. Put it together just like that. And then we've got another washer for the top, another bushing for the top, and it's flat on one side and has a, I don't know what you would call it, but it's got a shoulder that sticks out, and you want that to go down. You want the one that's on the bottom of the shock, you want that to go up, because there's a mount. The mount up for the shock tower has a hole that's this size, so this slides up in there and acts as a stabilizer to hold it centered on the shock tower. This on the top slides down so that you have both of them, one facing up, one facing down, so that they both go into the hole so that it stabilizes the shock in the center of the hole of the shock tower. And then you put your nut on, and then this one also comes with a fancy dancy little lock washer. So we'll add all that as we put it together. On the bottom, like I said, I've already put the steel sleeve in, which the bolt will ride on instead of riding on the rubber, and we'll be safe, we'll be good. It's as simple as putting this eye down back into the hole, putting the bolt in, pulling the shock up, putting it through the hole, cranking it back down. I will remember to put the boot on prior to putting it up in there so that we don't have that nightmare. I can put the zip tie on at any point, so we'll do that when we're all done. Alright, shock boot on. Alright, put this camera back down where you guys can watch what's going on. Alright, so now you can watch me put the shock in the bottom, and you can watch me put the shock back in the top as well. So I'm going to drop this down, drop it in here. Just like that. And slide the bolt through. Put the nut on the other side. Alright, tighten that up in a minute. Up on top. Let's bring this up here so that you can see this. As I said, you want to make sure that the hole for, come on, cooperate, there we go. I want to make sure that there's a hole right up in here, and that red grommet fits right up inside there, and this upraised portion goes inside the hole to center it more firmly, or more securely in the hole, so it's perfectly centered. It's got somewhere to ride on so it doesn't slide around inside that hole. And then the top bushing will do the same thing. There we go, inside the hole, just like I said. Okay, and we'll put the other bushing down so that it matches with the lower one. Put the retainer washer over the top, concave part down. The nut on. Sort this boot back out so that it's even on the bottom where it's supposed to be. Okay. Fish it back up in on the top of the washer so that the lip of the boot is above, holding it down. There we go, just like that. All right, there you have it. Easy enough to tighten everything up, but that's your shock. That's your shock installation right there. Bottom's in, top is in, boots on, tighten everything up, zip tie it, job done. Oh, don't forget the sticker. Never forget the sticker. You gotta have that. Crimp that bottom bolt back down. Alright, that was good and tight. Man, so much fun, too much fun. Alright, now I'll crank down the top. Let's see if I can do this without getting in the way. Did pretty good last time. As a rule of thumb, for me, as soon as you see the rubber compressing, you're done. I mean, that's just me. You can look it up on Google it, YouTube it, whatever you want to frickin' do. But for me, as soon as I see the rubber compressing, I don't need to crank it down any further. That's all she wrote. So there's your shock mounted and done. I'm not sure if I want to put this little washer on or not, but it'll help keep the the nut in place, so we'll go ahead and put it on. Came with it, might as well use it. So, there you have it. Deutsch check, shock installed. All we have left to do is the most important part, same as the back side, sticker. And of course, you gotta put the zip tie back on the shock boot and put the inner liner back to get on. So how do I do that? Make sure everything's the same. There you go. All nice and pretty. Alright, zip tie on. That's a wrap. It's a Jeep World. Shock removal, shock installation, pretty simple. Anybody with a standard set of wrenches can do it. All I did was turn the wheel out. I didn't take the wheel off, don't have to lift up the vehicle whatsoever. So, all good. Catch you on the next series.